son of Zeus.
The Egyptians hailed Alexander as a liberator. She had been conquered by the Persians for a second time, and the Egyptians loathed this notion. Alexander arrived and they welcomed him as a hero, a liberator, and he was identified, as many Egyptian kings, or should I say all Egyptian kings, had been, as a god and revered. From the Egyptian point of view, she was immediately brought into a wider world. She was made part of Alexander's notion of a united realm spanning all of the Mediterranean and beyond. From the Hellenistic period in Egypt, after Alexander's conquest, the Hellenistic ideal spread throughout all the major cities of Egypt, especially amongst the elite. And this was not only within the Nile Valley, but extended right out to these oases of the Sahara. And we see the spread of Alexander's cultural notions completely throughout Egypt. And so the administration in regions like this was on a Hellenistic ideal, if you wish. The official language in a city like this was Greek. This city prospered from the 1st century BC through to the end of the 4th century AD, and throughout that time the administration was entirely in Greek. And that in itself is a reflection of how strong the impact of Hellenism was in Egypt. The painted frescoes that we have recently found here are not pharaonic art, but they are classical art. So within the realm of painting and in architecture, we can see here at this city the effect of Hellenism and its arrival within Egypt.
The Sahara in central Egypt is the Darkly Oasis site. This remote spot has cast strong new light on the era of Alexander's influence in Egypt. The study of Hellenism continues to fascinate academics from around the world. At the sand-covered town of Smint, a joint Canadian-Australian team has unearthed a wealth of relics which reveal everyday life in this outpost of Greek culture.
There's a smaller piece up here. Unfortunately, we can't find anything that goes in between. We're not quite sure when settlement really began here. I'm hoping that it began in the 1st or 2nd century BC. It seems to have thrived until throughout the early Roman period and into late Roman times, 3rd, 4th century, and I believe was abandoned in about 400 AD. Not from any assault from outside or invasion, but because of the problems of the sand. As you can appreciate, we're in the middle of the Sahara. Sand is a major problem to all the settlements here. It always has been and always will be. And I believe that when the city was founded, there was no active sand dune formation anywhere in the region. Towards, perhaps in the region of about 400 AD, the wind pattern on the top of the nearby escarpment started dropping sand in the region of this city, and gradually it became too much for the locals to deal with, and they had to abandon it. They ripped out all the wooden fittings that they could reuse, because of course wood is very rare in this region. Anything they could reuse they took with them and they left. and the city may well have filled up with sand within 6 months or a year. And that is the state in which we find it, completely sand-filled. There's nowhere in the region now any sand dune activity. The sand is no longer being dumped here. It's being dumped in a different part of the oasis. And so simply sand forced the inhabitants out. And that accounts for the degree of preservation. Sand is very dry, it's a good preserving agent, and this is why we find so much left in this particular city. In my last season of excavations here, we found 2 intact books written on wood, tied together with string, both of course written in Greek. First one consists of 9 boards inscribed on both sides, and this is quite a sensational find because it is a very early version of the works of Isocrates, the contemporary of Aristotle, lived in 4th century Athens. And this is a reflection again of the out here. The works of Isocrates were preserved throughout the Roman world, and they became a model for all oration. And it shows here that the literary aspirations of this city were within the Hellenistic tradition. And Isocrates, of course, has a major connection with Alexander in that Isocrates supported Alexander's father, Philip II, in his unification of Greece, and he encouraged this and was one of the major supporters. And we have found the version of 3 of the writings of Isocrates in, I should say, a most unlikely context, discarded in a kitchen in one of the houses. Coming.
No? استنى
في رملة
لا
في رملة جوه
لا في
رملة جوه
في جوه ايوه كده ايوه خليك ماسك بس لا ده ناشف يعني ده ناشف ده خشب يعني ما تأثرش ده ورق ممكن هي ماسكاها بايدي وزي دي بالظبط ايوه واحده تحت شوف واحده Stand up and hold it up, Colin.
What?
Stand up and hold it up. واحدة.
See it?
Wonderful.
Wonderful things, look. Jolly good. Can we finish now?
Yeah.
I'll get some of the sand off because it'll all just rub against it, isn't it? Oh, it's got little bookends. Little bits on each end. Stop one page touching the other. Well, this is the Isocrates text. The page that you're looking at shows the division between 2 of the actual tales which are recorded. And you see the divisions along here. And it clearly tells us that here is the beginning of a new text. And I think this one is the one dealing with the son of the Prince of Salamis, isn't that right?
Yes, King of the Salamatians. Nicocles, I think, is the name of this prince.
When public ordinances and institutions are not well founded, alter and change them. If possible, originate for yourself what is best for your country, but, failing in this, imitate what is good in other countries. Seek laws that are altogether just and expedient and consistent with each other, which cause the fewest possible controversies and bring about the speediest possible settlement for your citizens. For it is both right and expedient that the judgment of kings on questions of justice should be invariable, like wisely ordained laws.
This is it's one of the earliest of the versions of Isocrates to be preserved, I think, isn't it?
Well, there are fragments, of course, but as far as I'm aware, it's the oldest complete text of any of these 3 essays.
Yes, there is one in the Vatican, isn't there?
Well, that's about 10th century.
So this one is, in fact, 700 years earlier than that particular version.
I think it's a very interesting way to consider what the sort of impact of such a strong culture as the Hellenism of the pre-Roman era can have, because of course we think of the Romans as having been culturally extremely superior and strong and so on, and yet right through the Roman period and long afterwards in Egypt, Greek is the language that's used, not Latin. And in fact, Greek is much